In recent days, tensions between the federal government and several Democratic-led states, commonly known as blue states, have escalated sharply. At the center of this growing controversy is former President Donald Trump, whose latest actions and rhetoric have sparked intense debate across the country. As his presidency faces mounting pressure from legal, political, and public challenges, Trump appears to be directing his frustration outward, targeting states that did not support him electorally. The most alarming development involves the freezing of more than $10 billion in federal aid to 5 blue states. This funding is not abstract or symbolic, it directly supports working families who rely on federal assistance for basic necessities such as food, housing, energy costs, and child care. By halting this aid, the administration has set off a chain reaction that could have real and immediate consequences for millions of Americans. At its core, this decision raises a fundamental question: should federal aid be used as a political weapon? Supporters of the move argue that states must comply with federal priorities and that the administration has the authority to review and reallocate funding as it sees fit. Critics, however, see something far more troubling. They argue that this is not about policy efficiency or fiscal responsibility, but rather about punishment, retaliation against states that oppose Trump politically. As Trump's presidency continues to spiral under the weight of investigations, court cases, and declining approval ratings, his confrontational approach has only intensified. Instead of working to unify the country, he appears increasingly focused on deepening divisions. This is not the first time Trump has singled out blue states for criticism. Throughout his political career, he has repeatedly accused Democratic-led states of mismanagement, corruption, and failure. However, critics point out that many of these states are economic powerhouses that contribute far more to the federal budget than they receive. States like California, New York, and Illinois consistently send billions more in federal taxes than they get back in aid. So why target them now? Political analysts suggest that Trump's strategy is rooted in grievance politics. By framing blue states as enemies or obstacles, he reinforces a narrative that appeals to his base, one that casts him as a fighter battling hostile forces within the country. This narrative thrives on conflict and thrives even more when institutions, states, or communities can be blamed for his struggles. But the consequences of this approach extend far beyond political messaging. The frozen funds are meant to support programs that help low-income families afford groceries, keep the lights on during extreme weather, secure stable housing, and access affordable child care. These are not luxuries, they are lifelines. Cutting or delaying this support risks pushing already vulnerable families deeper into financial distress. Governors and state officials from the affected states have condemned the move, calling it cruel, reckless, and politically motivated. Several have vowed to challenge the decision in court, arguing that the federal government does not have the authority to withhold congressionally approved funds based on political disagreements. Legal experts note that this could set a dangerous precedent. If one administration can withhold aid from states it dislikes, what prevents future administrations from doing the same? Federal aid is supposed to be distributed based on need and law, not loyalty. At the same time that Trump is freezing aid to blue states, critics point to another pattern: his administration's continued efforts to benefit powerful corporate interests, particularly in the oil and gas industry. While families face rising costs and shrinking support, major energy companies enjoy tax breaks, deregulation, and favorable policies. This contrast has not gone unnoticed. Environmental advocates argue that Trump's energy agenda prioritizes profits over people. By rolling back environmental protections and expanding fossil fuel production, the administration has enriched oil companies while exposing communities to greater health and environmental risks. Many of these risks disproportionately affect low-income and minority communities, the same groups most harmed by cuts to social support programs. To critics, the message is clear: aid for families is negotiable, but benefits for corporations are not. As public scrutiny grows, Trump's rhetoric has become increasingly combative. He has accused blue state leaders of incompetence, blamed them for national problems, and suggested that they are undeserving of federal support. This language, critics argue, undermines the basic principle of federalism, the idea that the federal government exists to serve all states equally. Former federal officials warn that this approach erodes trust in democratic institutions. When citizens see aid being withheld for political reasons, confidence in government fairness declines. Over time, this cynicism can weaken civic engagement and deepen polarization. The political timing of the aid freeze has also raised eyebrows. With Trump facing multiple legal battles and ongoing investigations, some observers see this move as a distraction, a way to shift media attention away from his own troubles and toward a manufactured conflict. Historically, embattled leaders have often resorted to externalizing blame when under pressure. By attacking blue states, Trump redirects frustration outward, framing himself as the victim of opposition rather than the source of controversy. Yet the reality on the ground tells a different story. Families waiting for food assistance do not experience this as a political chess game. Parents struggling to pay for child care do not see this as a strategic maneuver. For them, delayed funding means immediate hardship. Community organizations in affected states report increased anxiety among the people they serve. Many fear that programs they depend on will be reduced or eliminated altogether. Social workers warn that even temporary funding disruptions can have long-lasting effects, particularly for children. The broader economic implications are also significant. Federal aid supports local economies by funding jobs, services, and infrastructure. When that money is frozen, the ripple effects can lead to layoffs, reduced services, and slower economic growth. Ironically, many of the workers impacted by these cuts live in districts represented by Republican lawmakers. This reality complicates the political narrative, revealing that the consequences of partisan decisions rarely fall along clean ideological lines. As pressure mounts, some members of Congress, including a few Republicans, have expressed concern about the precedent being set. They warn that weaponizing federal aid could backfire, inviting retaliation and instability in future administrations. The courts may ultimately decide the legality of Trump's actions. Several lawsuits are already being prepared, arguing that the freeze violates constitutional principles and federal law. Legal scholars note that Congress, not the president, holds the power of the purse, and that executive overreach in this area could be struck down. Regardless of the legal outcome, the political damage may already be done. Trump's relationship with blue states was strained from the beginning, but this latest move represents a significant escalation. It signals a willingness to use federal authority not as a tool for governance, but as a lever for political dominance. For many Americans, this raises uncomfortable questions about leadership and accountability. Is the role of a president to serve all citizens, or only those who offer political support? Should disagreement be met with negotiation, or with punishment? As the country watches this conflict unfold, the stakes are high. The outcome will not only affect funding and policy, but also the norms that govern how power is exercised in a democracy. In the end, this is about more than Donald Trump or blue states. It is about the kind of political system Americans want to live under, one where aid is distributed based on need and law, or one where it is contingent on political loyalty. The coming weeks will reveal whether institutions, courts, and public pressure can rein in what critics describe as an abuse of power. Until then, millions of families remain caught in the middle of a political battle they did not choose, waiting for help that may or may not arrive.